Welcome to another episode of Rose Resource Room. Today I'm here with Nancy Manos. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you so much for having me, Ro.
My pleasure. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Start off with Nancy the woman. So before the homeschooling things, whether it's the work part of homeschooling or the homeschooling part of homeschooling, before the wife, before the mom, like tell me all about Nancy. And then you can share all your titles.
Oh, you're so cute. That is an interesting question. I don't know if I've been asked about my life before motherhood and homeschooling. I I love creative things. Joy is kind of a cornerstone, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, but of who I am. I love Jesus. I love families. I love seeing families thrive and women thrive in their homes and in their whatever they're doing, that God would show up. And so, like, that kind of weaves through everything that I am. And James and I have been married almost 35 years now. We're coming up on our 35th anniversary. We got married in a blizzard in Minnesota, so that was very exciting.
Okay.
And then my husband had a 10-year plan. He was going to graduate from college and get a good job and pay off student loans, and then we were going to have children. And Olivia came along 11 months later. So we got, and then Alex was 20 months later after Olivia. So we had our kids young and close together, and it was such a joy. And so then, as Olivia was getting to like the 3-year-old, 4-year-old age, we started thinking about what are we going to do for education. And there was a family at our church that had two boys, a little bit older than our two girls. And there was just something very special about this family. Like, these boys talked to us like we were regular people. Hello, Mrs. Manos. How was your day today? And I don't know, we just, as we spent time with them and they were a homeschool family, we really were drawn to the relationship that they had, the
Hmm.
time they had together, and then the academic advantage was a cherry on top. So that's kind of how we got our little family started and launched into homeschooling.
Perfect. And you mentioned joy, like your whole personality and character just exudes joy. And I've seen you in person in what should have been a very high stress, high pressure environment. And this was the same face. And I'm like, oh, okay. And it's such a beauty to watch because, you have people who, when things are going well, they're joyful. And then when things are not, they're like, well, things are not going well. So I'm not going to be joyful. But you practically and authentically live that. What did it take for you to get to that place?
Well, I look back to my childhood. I didn't have a great, I mean, I had a great childhood, but my parents got divorced when I was a kid, and there were lots of hard things in the midst of lots of good things. And I look back and I'm like, I used to lie a lot as a kid, and my nature is to complain, like, this isn't going right. I want to tell someone about it. And I just made a decision, I think about the time I got saved when I was 18, that I wanted a different life. I
Mm,
wanted my life to look different than it did before I came to know Jesus, right?
wow.
And so it's just been decades of time in God's Word, time with fellow believers, and really seeing that joy, I believe this 100%, joy is a gift to strengthen us. You don't need
Mm,
joy on the days when everything's going great and everybody got up in the morning and was like, I'm ready for school.
right.
How can I help around the house today, Mom? Like, I don't know if that ever really actually happened. But it doesn't have to be a good day, a great day for joy to sustain you. And so that's just really um, kind of something that I've walked out my whole adult life.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of intention, but also the mindset shift because you're saying the joy of the Lord is your strength. That's what you're using to
Yes.
sustain you. Whereas the average person thinks joy is something I feel when things are joyful, right? Which is really happiness. It's that fleeting,
Yes.
in the moment, in the circumstance, everything is great. So of course I have joy, which is really happiness. But you're saying, no, this is what I'm using as my anchor. I think that's
Yes.
beautiful. That's an awesome mindset shift.
It really is. And I will tell you that gratitude is kind of the key to joy. So when
Mm,
you look around, and there's always something to be unhappy about, right? There's always a mess. There's always something you haven't gotten to yet. There's always something stressing you out. There's always something that needs your attention. There's always
mm,
a child that's hungry or fighting or something. just because the nature of our human beings as human beings. But I feel like if we can look beyond what we see with our eyes and just ask God, like, what can I be thankful for right now? Look for beauty in the midst of the hard. And it's amazing. You will find it. And I just feel like gratitude really kind of unlocks the door to joy.
Yeah. A question just popped in my head before you started speaking, and you literally just answered it because I remember a while ago someone said to me, and I want to believe that she was joking. She said, homeschooling is the best thing I ever did for my kids and the worst thing I did for myself. And I chuckled, but it was heartbreaking that she actually felt that if she was
Yeah.
not joking. I don't think she was joking. But you
Oh
just
man.
answered, right? Like that's how do you want to say that again? It was beautiful.
Well, just I think gratitude is the key
Yeah.
to joy. But along with what you just said, I feel like homeschooling was the best thing for me because my kids were with me 24/7. My husband traveled for the first 17 years of our marriage. At least 2 weeks a month, he was on the road for his job. And so here I am parenting, and I feel like I had to grow as a woman in my character, in my walk with the Lord, and so it was good for me. It was good for me. I became a stronger, more patient, more organized, more disciplined because my kids were watching me and I wanted them to have those characteristics too, right? So I feel like homeschooling is fertile ground, not just for our children, but for us to grow in character and in maturity.
Yeah, and that really caught me off guard because when I realized that God wanted me to homeschool, I was like, okay, let's go. Where are the books? Let's do it. And then when I realized that it wasn't just education and academics and it wasn't just the hard schooling for them in terms of character and discipline, but it was for me, I'm like, whoa, I did not sign up for a curriculum, God. But it really was Him teaching me patience, teaching me consistency, revealing my flaws. And like you said, about that modeling. Like anyone can grab a curriculum and say, you should be kind. You should be brave. You should be persistent. But what does it look like in real life?
That's so true.
Yeah, kind of like what you talked about in it's not the great days. Of course, I'm going to be happy on the day where everything is going well. Of course, I'm
Right?
going to exude joy during those times, but that's not modeling. It's showing what it looks like in the not so great moments. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate you for sharing that. So, question for you. Um, for the mom who's, I think in the homeschool world, they say in the trenches or in the weeds, right? For the
Yeah.
mom who's in the thick of things, how do you keep joy alive on those hard or tired days? Like, what are some practical things?
Well, I love this question. I think a few things we could do. One is we live in our house with our children and we're schooling and we're doing all the things, and our house can get chaotic and cluttered. And I don't know if you're like me, chaos and clutter steal my peace. If I don't have
Absolutely.
peace, there is no joy. And so finding systems and routines and rhythms that help manage all the stuff. And it's not going to be, Better Homes and Gardens cover magazine kind of thing because we live in our house with our children. But if you can find ways to keep some order in your home, even if it's, before dinner, before dad gets home from work, before the end of the day, everybody, we're going to do a 15-minute, we're going to put on some worship music and do a 15-minute tidy up. And everything gets kind of put back in its place. It just brings peace into the next day too, because then you're not starting the day with like, where did the math books go?
Right. Yeah.
Who has a pencil today? Those kind of things. Because we have so much stuff when we homeschool, right? The stuff of it, the craft supplies and the science supplies and the math manipulatives and the posters and the all of it. There's just so much to maintain.
Yeah.
So all of that, papers, books, all of it. So I think having order promotes peace, and
Hmm.
peace will bring kind of paves the way for some joy. I think another thing is thinking about, like, I love looking at my life and my children as like I'm a gardener and I'm
Hmm.
tending to the garden. So I want the conditions to be right. I want to make sure that they have enough water and sunlight, and that we're pulling the weeds. So when discontent, grumbling, complaining starts to, spread like wildfire in my house, we're going to nip that in the bud, and not allow that to continue because it will get bigger and bigger, right? And so thinking about we're planting seeds in our children's lives, right? So how we talk to them, how we respond when we're frustrated or when, I only had two children and they were close together, but I have
Mm.
friends that have 10, 11, 12 children. What if they all need your attention at the same time? Like that can push you to the brink of your sanity. And so, especially if you have a bunch of little ones too, like that's a whole other level of intensity. But in those moments, think about the future. It helped me so much to think about the end of my homeschool journey.
Mhm.
What did I want to have accomplished when I get to the end of this road and my children are grown and launched? Well, I wanted to raise daughters who knew and loved the Lord, who, had good work ethic, were kind, all those things. And so, what am I doing today to plant seeds that foster that? It's not a guaranteed outcome with our children because we homeschool, but we have so much opportunity to pour into them.
I really appreciate that response for so many reasons. It was very practical. And I love how you talked about systems and then you had anchors. So it wasn't just like set up this system that does XYZ. It's also, well, here's an anchor. You just had lunch, do this. Here's an anchor. Dad's about to be home, do that. So it's like it's a flow and a rhythm versus a strict, rigid schedule. And I really appreciated that. And I also loved how you talked about just like seeing the end, like having that mission and vision and outcome in your mind and also remembering your why, right? Like so many times we forget, we're like, I homeschool these kids so they can be brilliant. That wasn't the only reason, right? And
Right.
then the last thing that really resonated with me was when you talked about a gardener. And that's because I tend to be a gardener too, but it's just that I'm pulling up the plant immediately after I planted it to see if it's stuck. Like I'm like, assessments, assessments, assessments. I'm like, bro, stop doing that.
Well, there is that quote that says, and was it Elizabeth Elliot? Don't
Probably.
dig up and doubt what you've planted in faith. Like if you were planting real plants, you wouldn't go plant them and 2 weeks later pull up the seed to see, is it doing anything?
Right.
You got to let it go. You got to let it do its thing.
Correct. Yeah. And there's another quote that I can't even remember it clearly enough to butcher it, but it was something about the fire, or like when you light it, you expect, I'll find the quote and send it to you because I can't remember it. But long story short, like I was saying how, I would constantly assess my kids because of what you just said. I was like, is this working? Am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
But you talked to me about lap books. And I think that's such an interesting way of documenting your learning and kind of, I'll let you talk about it. Tell me all about lap books. What is a lap book?
So this was something fun that we did in our homeschool journey. When we first started homeschooling, we were living in Minnesota, and then we moved to Arizona, and we went to the Arizona Homeschool Convention because I knew it was going to be amazing because I had experienced that in Minnesota. And there was a workshop on lap books. And this is such a fun way. I have a couple of examples to take what you're learning and make it more of a hands-on experience. But also at the end of it, you end up with like everything you learned around this little unit or whatever in a handy dandy folder that is wonderful for review, for showing to grandparents or aunts and uncles or friends from church. And then you can build, like we did a lot of unit studies. And so one that we did was on the human body. And it's so fun because I still have these from when my girls graduated in 2010 and 2011. So these are kind of old. But here's like our human body one. And basically what it is you're taking a file folder and refolding it so that it folds in the center. Here's one that I made that looks like a little castle. And so you just refold it so that it folds in the middle. And then I just cut out like a door and some little, whatever they're called at the top of a castle. And then you fill it with mini books. So things
Mm.
like vocabulary and, oh, it could be really anything, facts that you're learning. And so it's just about kind of folding the papers into different mini books. And so, especially if you have crafty kids or you have kids that need like the extra, I don't know, It's not a read the chapter and write the answers. It's more like go do the research and create this thing.
Mm,
Those kids really. And then if you're not a crafty mom, there are pre-done lap books that you can, print. You don't have to go do all the research yourself and come up with all the ideas. There's pre-existing ones that you can just order for really cheap or free and then print them off and do them with your kids. We like to do them too sometimes when we would travel. So one year we were in the like East Coast, so we did Washington, D.C., we did Fort McHenry, we went to the Hershey Hotel. That was extra fun. But along the way, we picked up, brochures and things from all the places that we went. And so in a way, it could be like a little scrapbook as
yeah.
well. And so they just, open up, and I don't know if it, like for audio listeners, so this one is sealed with Velcro dots, so it's kind of noisy. But you can add as many flaps as you need, and you just keep
Mm,
going. So, like for our human body one, we had a different page for each system of the body. And then each tab in the lap book had all the mini books for that system. So the skeletal system, all the different systems of the body. So that is a lot of fun. I wouldn't do it for everything because
okay.
then your kids will be like another lap book.
Okay.
But there's kind of a quick overview. So it really is a way of taking what you're learning and packaging it up so that you have a handy reference. And like I said, you can then have the kids can show grandma and grandpa what we learned about, ancient Egypt or whatever.
Right. Okay. So I love bullet journals, but I probably don't use it the way it was designed to use. So is there a right and wrong way to use a lap book or to do a lap book? Like,
No, I think anything that fits in a folder.
okay.
And like I said, you can add extra, you cut up file folders and glue them in so you get
Yeah.
as many tabs as you want. It doesn't have to just be a single file folder.
Okay.
But it really is, and there's so many different mini books you can make, different paper folds you can do. So I would go to like Pinterest or Google or ChatGPT and get lap book ideas.
Okay.
And it's amazing the inspiration you can find.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember I had a journal for the kids and I said, let's go to the store, get a journal you like, grab some markers, grab some pencils. And as we're learning, draw, doodle, whatever. So I think at one point we're learning about Charlemagne and they asked me to print a picture. So one kid printed a picture, colored it in, the other kid drew a picture of Charlemagne.
Cool.
Um, and eventually the idea was to kind of like document, but I think I was doing a portfolio. What you're talking about is a lap book and it's only for that specific topic.
Right. Yep. It could be maybe you're studying the solar system, or, oh gosh, I have a handout on my website that's for free that has a ton of different ideas. So it could
Okay.
be a book that you're reading, like maybe you just read Little House on the Prairie or, whatever. And you want to do a lap book about that, all the different maybe it's the clothes they wore and the food they ate. And, there's so many things you can study: history, science, math,
Mhm.
vocabulary, grammar, all of it. But it could be, so here's a few like random topics. Holidays. You could do
Okay.
one on Easter. You could do one on Groundhog Day. You could do one on, um, you know, Mother's Day or Father's Day or Christmas. You could do some science topics. Like I said, the solar system is great, the human body is good. What about like collective nouns for groups of animals, weather, plants? Then history, like history is one of my favorite topics. It wasn't when I was a kid, but when I got to teach it to my girls, I was like, this is awesome.
Same.
And so there's just something about that. But maybe it's the Oregon Trail, or maybe it's, inventors or the Great Depression. And then you could do Bible studies as lap books too, like the Fruit of the Spirit or the Armor of God or things like that.
I love it, love it, love it. Okay. So you're giving us all these amazing ideas. You're telling us how to anchor in our faith and make sure that God is at the center and that we're drawing our strength from God. You're talking about how to make sure that we have fun in the journey, right? So it's not just a chore, or we're not just trying to survive until they
Right.
leave the nest, but we're actually thriving, like you talked about moms thriving in the home. What are some tips for a mom or a dad who is homeschooling and they've lost their spark, or they're just tired or overwhelmed.
Well, and one, I would say, first thing, that's normal. There's nothing wrong with you if you are in that place of like, I don't have any motivation. My children are not motivated. I'm not loving this in this season. That is a normal part of homeschooling because it's hard work and because it all rests on your shoulders. You're
Mhm.
taking on a huge responsibility. So I think acknowledging that to start with is huge. Like, it's okay. But remember that God is our sustainer. He equips us for the good work of raising and educating our children. And so if we're depleted, if we're, exhausted, if we have no joy in our homeschool, some things you can do are get out in nature. Like maybe
Mhm.
this week is not about the workbooks. Maybe this week is you're going to go to the park, you're going to do some free field trips, or maybe they don't have to be free, but find something to do outside. Make sure you're going for a walk as a family, or maybe you need a walk yourself, mom. Listen to a podcast, listen to some worship music. If you can work that out in your day where you can have some time to move your body and refresh your spirit, that is, invaluable. And if you're home like I was with my kids and my husband traveling, they just went with me. We went everywhere together. Maybe it's okay, we're going to play board games today. There's a lot of strategy, there's some good math, there's lots of educational things that can happen in a good board game. So find ways to bring fun back.
Mhm.
Don't make it all about just finishing the curriculum because curriculum is just a tool. It's not your master, it's not the boss of you. It's a tool you're using to teach your children. But so is cooking together in the kitchen, so is
Mhm.
gardening, so is exercising, so is going out and just enjoying nature. So there's lots of ways, I think, to refresh ourselves.
Okay, so I cannot get over how practical your tips are, right? Like it's one thing to say, this big lofty goal, and then the mom is like, okay, great, but how do I do that? Like you nailed it in terms of practicality. I was even looking down because I was taking notes. I'm like, oh, I need to do that. But one thing you said that was such a major mindset shift was the curriculum is only a tool because I've had days when the curriculum was the boss, where I'm looking at the checklist and I'm looking at the dates and the calendar and things don't seem to be lining up. And I'm like, do I do 2 weeks in one? Do I do this? And
Right.
like you're saying, it's a tool to help me, not to boss me around.
Yes, that's so right. Well, and sometimes have we overplanned? Did we plan too much? Because on paper, it looks great. We're going to learn about X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F. We're going to learn all these things. And I know we can do it. And then you get, a month into school and you're like, this is too much. It's going to kill us all. It's okay to adapt and adjust your plans.
Yeah. I was reading a group chat this morning, a homeschool group chat, and one of the moms was sharing how she tries to slow down and she tries to, do the morning basket to make sure that she's promoting that peace and having joy in her days. But what happens is she gets so overwhelmed by all the things that need to get done, especially if, if the children, oh, I can't find a pencil, I need to go to the bathroom, like all the things that are delaying your time and you're just watching the time go away. And I chimed in and I was sharing how I had two goals. One was to finish by either 12 or 1, and I was wondering if the hard stop was the better way to make sure that we're not overextending ourselves, or if it should be if you don't finish on time, then the consequences that you have to continue and work all day, right? But the reason I'm bringing that up is I was telling the children, hey, I want us to master a couple of things. Like for the oldest one, it was I had a couple spelling lists I wanted him to get through. And then for the middle guy, it was a program that he was working through. And I
Yeah.
remember saying on the group chat, I was telling the kids, let's get through this and then we can flip where it's more joy and fun in the mornings and then we do the checklist. But
Oh,
it's not
yeah.
true. It's so not true. I'm just going to replace the goal because the kid
Right.
literally got through all his spelling on Monday and I was so excited for like 20 seconds until my brain said, okay, now we have to go to this, But that's
Right.
what you're sharing. Don't be that person.
Yeah. It really is. You want your kids to have an amazing experience. It doesn't mean that they're going to love math or doing their spelling or doing their whatever. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. But I think we set the temperature, the thermostat for our and the atmosphere for
Yeah.
our home. And if we're like, "Oh, we got to get this all done," and we're stressed out, they're going to be stressed out too. And
Yeah.
then we feed off of each other. We had a similar, I love that you said that your goal is to be done by 12 or 1. I found with my girls that the mornings were the best time for them academically. Like if we could do PE and music lessons and dance classes and piano, did I say piano lessons?
Music, yeah.
Whatever things that we had, extracurriculars, enrichment for the afternoon, art, some science experiments. But I knew that if we were going to get like our reading, math, grammar, all those things done, the morning was the best time. That was when they had the most focus, the best attitude, the most energy for those things. And so I like protected the mornings. Like they
Hmm.
were, on occasion we would do something, but generally, if we did anything outside the house or for anybody else, it was in the afternoon because I just knew if we got our work done, then we could play games. Then we could,
Right.
they could get out their craft supplies and go do wood burning or photography or whatever they wanted to do.
Whatever. Yeah. Okay. Nancy, I don't know. You're such a breath of fresh air because of how balanced you are. Like you're not the, oh my gosh, everything's amazing, everything's awesome. You're like, it can be amazing and awesome if you have the right anchors and tools in place. Meaning start with your worship, make sure you have systems and structure. But it's not this lofty goal, kind of like Pinterest, where you're like, first of all, you didn't tell me where I can find the container that makes the thing look that good. So Pinterest, I'm over you. But you are the balanced authentic, transparent, and honest view of what homeschooling looks like. And you're also not making it a one size fits all. Like, in order to be successful, in order to have joy, you should do this, right? So, I just really, really appreciate your thoughts and your insight. And I
Oh,
just
I'm
wanted
glad.
to ask you for any additional thoughts, whether it's something you wish you knew, something you learned later, or something you want to tell just any mom or dad on your heart.
I think two things. Enjoy your children. Like if there is one message I have for moms and dads, it's enjoy your kids because like my daughter is turning 34 and we're going to be married 35 years. Like this is where I am in my life. And I think we're going to know our children more as adults than as
Mhm.
children. So their childhood, well, it literally feels like it's going at a snail's pace. And some days you're like, could I just speed this up a little? Like legitimately those years are so short and so enjoy them even when they're misbehaving, even when it's a bad attitude, like just treasure the relationship you have with your kids. So if I could go back and tell my younger mom self something, it would be to stop stressing so much about performance and behavior. I
Mm,
focused more. Now thankfully God got a hold of my heart through a friend that spoke truth to me when my girls were in their early teens, where it was like you're focused more on their behavior than your relationship with them. And they're growing and they're trying and they're failing and they're growing. And so I needed to look less at the particular behavior, even though we address those
right.
things. We're
Discipline.
disciplining, we're training them towards godliness, right? But to cherish the relationship over the behavior issues because those you can still deal without breaking their spirit or ruining your relationship. And I will tell you now that my daughter is one of my closest friends.
Mhm.
And it's a joy. Both daughters, I don't know, our youngest died 8 years ago at 23, but both girls as young adults, dear friends, and Olivia continues to be. And now she's a mom and she's homeschooling one of her sons, and it's so neat to be in this season of life. But when you're in the trenches with little kids, you can't see it.
Mm,
You'll hear people say things like that
all
to
the
you.
time.
Like, sure, great. I just want to survive today. They want to eat again. Why
Yeah,
are they always hungry? But that's my encouragement is just enjoy them and then also really work on that relationship because they'll be a friend for life.
very sweet. Thank you for the encouragement. I do feel encouraged.
Good.
Thank you to your friend who was honest enough to, just kind of be like, hey, things will change. And thank you to you for constantly sharing the story. And my condolences. I did not know that one of your daughters passed away. So my heart goes out to you.
Well, God is faithful and good. That is the heart of my message in every topic is how good our God is. And
Amen.
I'm praying for everybody's family for this school year that your homeschool would be rich and joyful and not drudgery. It doesn't have to be drudgery.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much, Nancy. You are such a
Thanks for
blessing to
having me,
us.
Ro.
My pleasure.